Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Social Contract, a Commander podcast. I'm Mike Almond, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Alex Lapp. Alex! What's up, man?
Not too much, Mike. Happy to be here. And
yeah,
we have an episode that we probably should have done some time ago, but I'm really excited for this one.
Yeah, I've been hungry. You know, I didn't get to eat breakfast, so why don't we have some Gluntch?
So what is Gluntch exactly? Is that like a cross between Glinner and Lunch, or?
I think it's lunchtime, but as a group, it's a group hug lunch.
It's like group lunch.
Yeah. I don't understand why this is such a hard concept. I thought, a Gluntchen.
You're ready for an amazing Gluntchen.
Yeah, well, I think it's like brunch. I think it's like brunch, but like as a group, and you're glad to be there. That's all.
Yeah, glad brunch. So we're going to be doing something we've done once or a couple times before.
Yeah,
which we call a live deck brew, right?
We'll do it live.
Right, we're doing it live. Now, obviously, this is a recording, but it's more that it's an extemporaneous build. Less so than a live build. And the way that we do that is not by kind of faking it and picking out a bunch of cards ahead of time and acting like that we picked them, but basically what I've done and what we'll share with you in the show notes is I've used Scryfall to search terms that could be relevant to our build, and then sort of through those, we have our categories that every deck needs to have. We've got our card advantage search, we've got our removal ramp, and then we've got our actual meat and potatoes, that what the deck does itself. And if you're interested in that kind of thing and the weird way that I build decks, we're going to include the spreadsheet, and it'll have these long Scryfall search terms. You can kind of follow along as we look through the cards and see what decisions we make. Maybe you would have made a different decision, but you can see all the cards that we're seeing, Mike.
Yeah, and as a reference, when we talk about we've got like a list and we're going to go off of that. Before I get into the main actual portion of what we're going to aim to do, which, for spoiler alert, is going to be bestowal, as a majority of the actual card effects. Lands, ramp, removal, spot and wrath, card advantage between drawing and tutor. Just looking at those different options as we've built out and going through the search parameters that you've put up, we're talking about well over 1,000 cards at the start that we're going to look through. Yeah. So this is going to be, we're going to be whittling some stuff down here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to make you make the first decision here.
Okay.
I guess we should talk about the commander first.
Yes, let's talk about Gluntch, the Bestower. Gluntch is a legendary creature jellyfish. It's a 1 green-white, 3 mana for a 0/5 jellyfish with flying. At the beginning of your end step, choose a player. They put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature they control. Choose a second player to draw a card. Then choose a third player to create 2 treasure tokens. Mike, I think that this is the most dyed-in-the-wool, straight-up group hug politics commander that we've had since the original Feldegriff. This is the new Feldegriff in my eyes. Not saying it replaces Feldegriff, just saying that it's a new sort of take on it.
Yeah, I liked the politics deck that we had in the Strixhaven commander set with the Orzhov one. Silver Quill or something. Yeah, something along those lines.
That one was interesting too. This one's from Baldur's Gate.
Yes, and this is very specifically yes, it's political, but it's very people
heavy.
Are getting stuff.
Yes,
you're not giving somebody the benefit of here's some stuff if you don't. All of that is something that you can discuss on your own, but all Gluntch does is bestow. So we're going to bestow some things.
That's right,
and I love this as an idea. So a couple of things that we got to just make sure that we understand. It's at your end step.
Yes.
You're choosing a player, and they're going to get 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature they control.
Yes.
So first things first, you pick a player. They pick a creature they control to put 2 +1/+1 counters on.
Yes, they choose the creature.
Do they have to have a creature for you to pick that player?
No. No, they do not.
Perfect.
Because otherwise it would have said, choose a player that controls one or more creatures. And
Correct.
It doesn't say that.
We're doing the mini judge corner. I'm going to ask you a lot of questions that I know the answers to.
That's fine. I know you
because we have to establish this early.
Knows, right?
Oh yeah, no, I've got my Gluntch deck. I'm excited to change it to this one though.
You don't have to do that.
I'm more than willing. So you can pick somebody who doesn't have creatures.
Yes.
Great. They're not going to get the value, and you've already eliminated them as an option to get something else in the future. Because choose a second player to draw a card. That means that you have to do the first effect first, then, period. So choose a creature they control. Period. Choose a second player to draw a card. Great. So a second player is going to get the effect of drawing a card. Mm-hmm. Then choose a third player to create 2 treasure tokens.
Yes.
If it is just down to you and one other player, there is no then a third player.
If it's down to heads up commander and there's only 2 people, you and somebody else, then only the first effect will take place, right? You're going to choose either yourself or your opponent, and your heads up, you're going to choose yourself at that point to put 2+1/+1 counters. There is no way to say, okay, well, it's me and one other player, so I'll just choose treasure tokens for me. No.
Right.
There has to be at least 3 players in the game to get all 3 effects. If there's 2 players, then you'll only get the first 2. One player draws a card, one player gets the +1/+1 counters.
So there you go. If you feel bad that somebody is getting left out, just remove a player from the game. Then everybody gets something. There you go.
There you go.
So that is Gluntch in a nutshell. We love this jellyfish.
We stand it.
Where do you want to start? Do you want to start with our vegetables and go into the lands? Do you want to start with...
I think that we should start with the meat and potatoes, the bestowal first. And then from there we can move into some more of the other things. So I think that...
Sure.
Yeah. So we have several effects that Gluntch is doing, right? It's everything is bestowal, but we have 3 distinct things. We have the +1/+1 counters, we have the card draw, we have the treasure tokens.
Yes.
And then overall, we have the fact that is a trigger.
So
I have 4 different search terms here, Mike. Let's start with the counters.
Okay.
So the search term I have here is that we care about +1/+1 counters. And basically the rest of the terms I put in there is errata. We're not going to go too much into that. If you're interested in how I construct these search terms, you can ask us on Discord or on Twitter. But for now, we'll just leave this in the show notes so that you can kind of investigate on your own and talk about that later. But for now, this is the search term that cares about +1/+1 counters. So let's look at some of these and talk about maybe some of them that might be interesting for our deck.
Sure.
Okay. Here's one that I see right away, Mike, that I already like. Orzhov Advocist.
Yeah.
Orzhov Advocist is 2 and a white for a creature human advisor. It's a 1/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player may put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature they control. If a player does, creatures that player controls can't attack you or planeswalkers you control until your next turn. A classic.
Like yep. It's good in any political deck. It doesn't force players to not do something. It gives every player the opportunity to choose to do something or not do something, which I'm always a big fan of. Along those same lines, I kind of want to include Nils Discipline Enforcer in here too.
Okay, let's take a look at that one.
Yeah, so Nils Discipline Enforcer is a 2/2 for 2 and a white legendary creature human cleric. At the beginning of your end step, for each player, put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature that player controls. Each creature with 1 or more counters on it can't attack you or planeswalkers you control unless its controller pays X, where X is the number of counters on that creature. So it's Sphere of Safety, but specifically on a creature and counters attacking.
This is an interesting foil to Orzhov Advocates, right? Because Orzhov has this effect that proliferates a lot more +1/+1 counters. They get spread around a lot more, and the restriction is harsher. But when it's time for the Alpha Strike, that player can simply elect to not choose to put counters on and then attack you with everything they have, which is now pumped.
Correct.
Which is a risk that you're taking. But with Nils, even though it's a slower effect, we're going to be using these +1/+1 counters a lot more, spread them around more, and now we have this attack tax that's making it difficult for them to alpha strike us. Maybe so much that they don't even want to.
Right. It's the option of take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Optimally, you're giving people counters. You're encouraging them to attack each other or just specifically not attack you.
Yeah.
And then when it gets to a point of, oh no, I might be in danger here, that's where you'd want something like Nils Discipline Enforcer to be out there. Or the other one that I was going to have is Noble Heritage, because why not just double down on the same effect, right? So these are the cool background enchantments. Noble Heritage, 1 and a white, legendary enchantment. Commander creatures you own have, when this creature enters the battlefield, and at the beginning of your upkeep, each player may put up to 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature they control. For each opponent who does, you gain protection from that player until your next turn.
Nice.
So just a more effective version of Orzhov Advocates as far as I don't have protection from specific things. They might not be able to attack me, but from that player, no, that player leaves me alone. I enjoy that.
Now, protection, remember we use debt, and it can't be dealt damage, can't be enchanted equipped, can't be blocked, can't be targeted. Okay. So protection means, additionally, this has this offensive capability. Since you have protection, there's a lot of additional things that they can't do to you. It's not just... Although they can attack you, it's not going to deal damage, so they'll only get triggers.
So if they attack me with their creature, I don't have protection from their creature, but I have protection from them. Am I safe from their creature?
It's anything controlled by that player, so
neat.
Yes.
Hey, look, if you read the card, it talks about it, including the italics that say you can't be targeted, dealt damage, or enchanted by anything controlled by that player. Well, that's neat. Hey, that card's cooler than I thought.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
It's still cool, don't get me wrong, but it's even cooler when it's correct. What else are you feeling for bestowing counters here?
Yeah, let's take a look at what we got here. Okay, this one's great, Mike. You ready for this? Sheltering Ancient. This is an old one back from Cold Snap back in the day. This is 1 green for a creature Treefolk. It's a 5/5, 2 mana, with trample and cumulative upkeep. Put a +1/+1 counter on a creature an opponent controls. Now,
neat.
Back when Cold Snap came out, that was supposed to be a downside, but for us, now let's real quick. Maybe you haven't played with cumulative upkeep before or in a while, but basically what that means is at the beginning of your upkeep, you're going to put a counter on Sheltering Ancient, and then you'll pay the cost, which is putting that +1/+1 counter on an opponent's creature for every H counter you have. So the first time you pay it, which is the turn after it comes out, you'll do 1, the next turn you'll do 2, then 3, then 4. So this sort of, if we care about our opponents having counters on their creatures, which we do, this is going to generate value very quickly as the game progresses.
Plus, 2 mana 5/5. That's always fun.
Sure.
What happens if the board is wiped and this thing is out?
If you can't pay the cost, you have to sacrifice the creature.
I assume so. That's pretty neat, though. I like that.
And it's only 2 mana. It's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Do we want to bestow a curse with Gluntch here? With Curse of Predation here?
Ooh.
2 and a green for an enchantment or a curse. Enchant player. Whenever a creature attacks enchanted player, put a +1/+1 counter on it.
I like it.
Yeah. So we're already dealing with, hey, we're going to give good stuff. Be our friend. It's going to be cool. But now we're also saying, hey, by the way, that person is doing way too well. Let's focus.
I really like the old friend or foe cycle, right? Regma's Sanction, 3 and a white, 4 mana for a sorcery from Battle Bond. For each player, choose friend or foe. Each friend puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature they control. Each foe chooses 1 untapped creature they control and taps the rest. Right? Okay. That's not a very bad downside, but it does enable someone to get alpha struck. And for the upside, now we're spreading all those +1/+1 counters. And since we care about that, maybe with some attack taxes, maybe with some stuff like that, they can't attack us, but they can easily attack the person that we choose.
Sure. Well, even as long as you're not picking the next player, because assuming that we're glunching to our heart's content, we're probably putting more +1/+1 counters on our collective opponent's stuff than just our stuff. But as long as this is something that it opens it up for somebody else to do a decent bit of damage.
Right. You're creating
That's
these
pretty good.
opportunities and just kind of like, hey, it's there if you want it. And you're going to get a lot of stuff for doing it.
No, for sure.
Here's another old one that's definitely on the lower power side, but still may be relevant for us. Tempt with Glory, 5 and a white, 6 mana.
Yeah!
Sorcery, Tempting Offer. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Each opponent may put a +1/+1 counter on each creature they control. For each opponent who does, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Right. So that's supposed to be like kind of this gambit with this like political upside downside. Like, I don't know, or they want to, yeah. But for now, it's not just, oh, can we entice our opponents to take the bait and then we get the benefit for it? No, if they take it, it's all upside because we want their creatures to have the counters on them. It is a little more on the expensive end, but I think that that's justified for how much of an upside this is for us.
Yeah. Oh, and at a certain point, like, there's nothing wrong with, I'm not entirely sure. No, this can be absolutely game-breaking depending on the board state that you've got.
Can you imagine if everybody takes this? Now everybody just puts +1/+1 counters on their stuff, and all of your board is pumped.
And there you go. Here's the thing. It's you give everybody else the option, right? So you get your +1/+1 counters immediately. And then the rest of the table basically has to decide, are they going to collectively pump all of your stuff and themselves a little bit, or none of them going to do it? Because the second that one of them does, if that puts them in a position of, oh no, I have to do the arms race and catch up, they have to figure out if they're going to be fighting against 2 people or 1 in you. So I like Tempt with Glory a lot.
Listeners might recognize that from the Tempt with Discovery as part of that same cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And
the lesser known
has gotten a lot of attention and discussion over the years. Is that, do you take it? Do you not take it? Do you take it and blow up their land? I'm always of the opinion I always take it because it's good for me. It's good for them. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, Mike. What do we got?
Yeah. I'll tell you what. Can we talk about Forgotten Ancient?
Please.
So Forgotten Ancient is... I don't feel like it's seen a lot anymore, even though like it reads powerful to me, or at least potentially. Forgotten Ancient, 3 and a green for a 0/3 elemental. Whenever a player casts a spell, you may put a +1/+1 counter on Forgotten Ancient. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may move any numbers of +1/+1 counters from a Forgotten Ancient onto other creatures. Now, the first few times that I've read this card, I inserted the words other creatures that you control onto it. Because that's presumably what you would want to do. With Gluntch, this is great. Now you are going to put +1/+1 counters onto this elemental, and through a couple of, through a turn cycle, if you're playing in a standard EDH table, what would you say? 6 spells in a go-around typically? People are usually casting at least one spell on their own, but maybe 2.
Turns, I think that each player, on average, will cast 1 spell a turn, with maybe more than 1 per turn.
Right, so 4, 5, 6 spells typically. Okay, great. And now on your upkeep, you're moving +1/+1 counters to other creatures. And then if you've got Gluntch out on your end step, you're adding +1/+1 counters to different creatures, or putting them on Forgotten Ancient, and using those counters to put them on somebody else towards the end. I just kind of dig that as an effect.
Absolutely. How many are we up to for this section so far?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got 8.
Okay, so here's one more, and we'll go up to, we'll say 10.
Perfect.
Force Mage Advocate, right? Part of that Mage Advocate cycle that I love. I know you love it too. 1 and a green, creature shaman. It's a 2/1, 2 mana. It has an activated ability, tap, return target card from an opponent's graveyard to their hand, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Mike, this is all political upside for us.
Yep. No, we like that.
We love this cycle. We stand a Mage Advocate.
Okay.
Let's go.
What's the last one we want to do here?
So
what's the last one?
I do have one here that I think would be good, but if you want to do one, that's fine too.
You go first.
Okay. I have Leyline, which is 3 and a green for an enchantment, 4 mana. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player may put a +1/+1 counter on target creature of their choice. So this is going to start generating a lot of +1/+1 counters.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. because there's not a lot of downside to doing it.
No, why wouldn't you?
Why not do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So just have fun. I was gonna say I was looking at that one, and I was looking at Predatory Hunger just because I think it's a funny card. 1 green, so just a single green for enchant creature. Whenever an opponent successfully casts a creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on enchanted creature. Okay. I like to give that to other people. Yeah. just be like, hey, look at that thing get big. But Leyline was the other one that I was looking at, so I'm happy to go with Leyline.
Okay. Perfect. So we'll put a pin in that section, and then we'll move on to the next section of Bestow that we care about, Mike, and that is drawing cards.
Hooray! And, people like cards.
People do like cards, and we have some really interesting ones in this list. Goodness. Where do we even start?
Here's my first question. When we're talking about these cards, and there's a couple of these that tie into other like lands that tie into the theme as well. Do you want to include those in this section, or do you want to take those and put them into the lands themselves section?
I would keep them in lands, but we can absolutely pick lands and things that go other sections.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because with lands, right, I do have a section for our lands that we'll go through that only is lands that we care about. And you may find that many of the lands that show up in here will also show up in there. But there's no reason why you can't say, like, oh, I like that land. And I think I see the land you're talking about. Mike, you want to read it?
Well, I'm talking about a couple, but this one in particular, let's talk about Gaia Reach Sanitarium. Okay. Because, hooray! Legendary land, tap, add a colorless. Well, that's good.
Right.
You can pay 2, tap it. Each player draws a card and then discards a card.
Perfect.
So everybody gets to loot.
Yeah.
We love that.
We love that.
What you got me for the next one? I got to write this down. Gaia Reach.
Well, Mike, if we're talking about lands that care about card draw, how could we not mention Mikokoro, Center of the Sea? This is one of my favorite lands in the entire format. That's legendary land, tap, add a colorless, and it has the activated ability, pay 2 and tap. Each player draws a card.
Well, that's just a better version of the one that I said,
I don't
Alex.
think it's necessarily better. It depends on your idea of better.
I guess. I don't want to make people get rid of
a lot of decks, and I don't have Gaia Reach in any of my decks.
That's fair. I'll tell you what. We're talking about lands. We got plenty of time to talk about lands.
Yeah,
We're probably
let's
going to
talk
talk
about
lands in between
cards.
anyway. Hey, old standard. Howling Mine.
Perfect. The first group card ever printed.
Yeah! 2 mana. Artifact. Howling Mine. At the beginning of each player's draw step, if Howling Mine is untapped, that player draws an additional card. We're not going to untap. We're never going to tap this. This is here for people to draw cards.
Yeah, this is Howling Mine is always good. It's just great. What can you even say about it?
Yeah, we love Howling Mine. What do we got for another one?
Let's look at this. Let's talk about a group hug staple, right? You knew this was coming in here. The Rites of
I'm already
Flourishing.
writing it down.
Right?
Yeah. 2
and a green for enchantment, 3 mana. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card, and each player may play an additional land on each of their turns. Mike, can you even make a green group hug deck that doesn't have this card in it? It's pretty great.
I don't think so.
It's pretty great.
Yeah. I love, these Rites of Flourishing, the lands that we activate for everybody to draw a card. Like Temple Bell, another one where, hey, 3 mana, tap, all players draw a card.
Yeah.
I love that stuff, but the reason I'm bringing up Temple Bell is specifically to bring up Runic Armasaur. Because I like it when, hey, we can just give everybody a card, but I also like it more whenever everybody gets a benefit to somebody else doing something that their deck already does. Because then everybody else is playing Group Hug too, whether they want to or not. Runic Armasaur, 1 green for a 2/5 dinosaur. Whenever an opponent activates an ability of a creature or land that isn't a mana ability, you may draw a card. Well, now you're helping me because you're doing your stuff. Yeah. That's okay, though, because I've been helping you this entire time.
That's great.
What do you got for another one for me?
Mike, I am a huge fan of Heartwood Storyteller.
Yeah!
I adore this card, and because it got that reprint, it is no longer $17. It is now less than $2.
Cha-ching!
Heartwood Storyteller, 1 green, 3 mana for a creature treeful, 2/3. Whenever a player casts a non-creature spell, each of that player's opponents may draw a card.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, I can probably count on one hand the number of times that this has come out and drawn less than 10 cards for the table.
Right.
This always generates an absurd amount of value, and nobody will delete it unless they're doing a board wipe and it just gets caught up. Nobody wants to delete it because they always think they can get the most value out of it. And really, it's everybody's getting the value out of it. It's just so good.
I want to talk about Savala, but the nicer one.
Okay, the nice Savala, yeah.
Yeah, Savala, Explorer Returned. This is a 1 green-white for a 2/4 legendary creature Elf Scout with the best ability in the game.
The best.
Nobody can convince me otherwise. Parlay. Because what is Group Hug if not parlaying? Tap, each player reveals the top card of their library. For each non-land card revealed this way, add green, and you gain 1 life. Then each player draws a card. So everybody reveal the top card. It's like Atali, but the nice version.
Right.
Everybody reveal the top card. Everybody's going to draw that card. But if they aren't lands, you're going to get that much life and that much green.
Yep.
First of all, I'm a big fan of this kind of group hug effect. Everybody's going to get a benefit. Mine is just
I get the
more
biggest
fun.
benefit.
Yes.
Yeah.
I get to eat the biggest chicken leg at the dinner table for now. Plus, that is such a fun ramp card without it being necessarily a ramp card every single time. Every once in a while you're going to whiff, but it's so innocuous. Like, for somebody to specifically decide to target this based off of all of the other effects that you're doing doesn't really make sense to them. But for you, it's potentially 4 mana that you're going to add on a turn after you've played it.
Yeah, this is really nice to activate on right at the beginning of your turn, and then you can sort of plan your turn around based on how much extra mana you generate.
Yeah.
And that extra life is no slouch either. You accumulate life over the course of the game that just makes you a little bit less vulnerable. Mike, I have one that I've never played in a deck, but as soon as I saw it, I knew it had to go in this one, and that's Flumph. Flumph is 1 and a white, 2 mana for a creature jellyfish, 0/4 with defender and flying. Whenever
This is bait. Yeah, go ahead.
Whenever
Sorry.
Flumph is dealt damage, you and target opponent each draw a card. So perfectly on theme, right? It's a group hug jellyfish, but
It's baby
read it
Gluntch.
carefully, right? It doesn't say that the player that dealt damage to it draws a card. It's target, and you draw a card. So you can make a deal. You can say, hey, if you attack into me, I'm going to block with this and give somebody else the card.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's...
Figure out a way to ping it yourself.
Right, you ping it yourself and then start handing cards out. Mike, love it. Love this card.
Speaking of cards that you don't play, I'm gonna really test you here. I want to put Secret Rendezvous in this deck specifically because of our history with it.
It's
1 white.
It's just that it's not very good.
I know, and that's why we have to put it in here. It's a social contract card, even if it's not a social contract card. 1 white for a sorcery. You and target opponent each draw 3 cards. If we're already in a deck where the whole purpose is to give people stuff, 3 mana for 6 cards, well, I guess 5 cards after you get rid of it, collectively.
Yeah, that's kind of a problem.
That's good. Come on.
Listen, I love the idea. I just wish that it were costed like I know a group hug card should be.
Yeah.
The reason why it isn't is because it's white card draw. If this were a blue spell, this would cost like 1 mana.
Yeah, I was about to say it would be 2, but at the same time in my head.
It'd be cheaper than this, and it'd probably be
it'd be cheaper. Too. You're right.
Another target draw effect, Loran of the Third Path. 2 and a white, legendary creature, human artificer. She's a 2/1 with vigilance. When Loran of the Third Path enters the battlefield, destroy up to 1 target artifact or enchantment. And she has the ability tap you and target opponent, draw a card.
Yeah. It's so the ability. This card having vigilance is just funny to me. As nope, I'm gonna hold this up as a blocker. I'm gonna hold it up as a blocker. All right, my turn. Okay, your end step. Me and Andy are gonna draw a card.
Huh.
I just like that. Do we want... Okay, this is
how
where we
many are
start
up
getting
to
into
here,
the...
first of all?
So here's the thing. We are at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, but 2 of those are lands. So I'm willing to say that we're at 9.
Okay, so we're at
if
9.
we want to. So I want to get one more in here.
Yeah.
I want you to look for yours, and while you're looking for yours, I'm going to tell you why I want it to be Wedding Ring.
Okay, well, I was going to pick Wedding Ring.
Okay, cool. Hey, how about you tell me why you want to pick Wedding Ring, and then I'll tell you why you're right.
You'll tell me why I'm right.
Yeah.
Well, it's political card draw in white, and also get some of that life gain. I'm not suggesting that we're going to have a life gain something here because we've got a lot going on, but it's we're going to be making our opponents draw cards on their turn a lot, and that's going to draw us cards.
Yeah. That's the point. Hey, look, you got it right in one. Wedding Ring, 2, white for an artifact.
Expensive.
It is. Well, it's a diamond ring, man. Like, what do you expect?
No,
we got to get those lab.
this is like a $12, $17 card over here.
How about what if we got like a proxy made of it and we called it lab grown Wedding Ring? Because those are cheaper and less scary. Yeah. When a Wedding Ring enters the battlefield, if it was cast, target opponent creates a token that's a copy of it. Hey, you should cast this. Whenever an opponent who controls an artifact named Wedding Ring draws a card during their turn, you draw a card. Whenever an opponent who controls an artifact named Wedding Ring gains life during their turn, you gain that much life. So you're just 4 mana. Hey, whenever you're doing stuff,
they may not consent to being married to you, but you're hitched.
I feel like you cast this and then you do one of 2 things. You either target the archenemy and you say, no, you're doing too much stuff. I would like to do stuff when you do stuff. Let's get married, baby. Or you basically cast this card and say, who wants to play Two-Headed Giant with me for the rest of the game? There you go. You're doing, and this is not likely going to be the first I'm giving people benefits card that you've played.
No, you
so the idea
to reap the rewards of what you've already set up.
Yeah, so you're going to be people are going to try and make deals with you or want to get on your good side and, hey, yeah, you can pick me. Let's just be friends.
The more effects we have that allow us to give favors at our discretion, the more powerful our favor becomes. So we've done counters. We've done draw. Yeah. There's one more thing that Gluntch does, Mike, and that's treasure. Treasure. If you've ever watched those old Gumby cartoons from decades past, they have this really specific accent that I've never heard anyone speak in. And the way they say the word treasure, they say treasure, like Tray, tray, like a food tray, and sure as in I'm sure of that. They say treasure. I'm like, every time I hear it, I'm like, how many syllables are you trying to fit in the word treasure? Treasure. Speaking of treasure, Mike, Smothering Tithe, obviously. Yeah. 3 and a white, 4 mana, perhaps the best card in mono white. Enchantment. Whenever an opponent draws a card, that player may pay 2 mana. If that player doesn't, you create a treasure token. This thing is still above $25.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good card.
It is. It's amazing.
So let's do the secondary version of, hey, when people do stuff, they have to give us stuff for it. Okay. Mostly because I'm so happy that this card came down, Smuggler's Share. Mm-hmm. This was expensive for a while. And then people
still above $10, but yeah.
Oh yeah, but I remember when it came out, it was like, oh man, I want this, but I'm not going to pay that much for it. Smuggler's Share, 2 and a white for an enchantment. At the beginning of each end step, draw a card for each opponent who drew 2 or more cards this turn. Then create a treasure token for each opponent who had 2 or more lands enter the battlefield under their control this turn. Well, a lot of the effects that we're going to do are going to give people extra cards. And we even have a couple of effects where we're going to try and give people extra lands, as far as I'm concerned. So, get into that. Cool. Great effect. Let's do it.
Same line, right? Monologue tax, 2 and a white. Enchantment, whenever an opponent casts their second spell each turn, which maybe with all that card drawn mana, maybe they're encouraged to cast more spells, you'll create a treasure token from that second spell.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. What's some more things that we can give other people? Oh, is Tempting Contract in this?
Yes, it is.
Deck?
Yeah.
Okay. So Tempting Contract then. It's 4 mana for an artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent may create a treasure token. For each opponent who does, you create a treasure token.
Perfect.
I think one of the things that you can do in Group Hug, especially with these effects, is if you're giving extra resources over and over and over again, a lot of the time it's so much easier for people to just say yes to the next thing.
Right.
Because if you've got 5 treasures built up over a bunch of different effects and you've got extra land drops, people are like, well, what's one extra treasure going to do?
Exactly.
Fine, go ahead and take one.
Uh...
And then that's the next person. Then that's the next person. So I've now created 3 extra treasures based off of the fact that I already had more resources than people would expect.
This is a really unflattering comparison to this phenomenon, but if you know how those free-to-play mobile games work, where they have... Yeah, I said it was going to be unfavorable. Where they have...
No, but I get it. I get where you're going. That's great.
They have that sort of intra-level deal where it's like, you can get 1 billion gems one-time purchase for 99 cents. You're like, wow, 99 cents for 1 billion gems? Yeah, might as well. Mm-hmm. Well, what they're trying to do is not get 99 cents out of you. They're trying to get you to, number one,
get into the rhythm.
Your method of payment, and number 2, remove that sort of mental barrier to kind of wear away your resistance to purchasing. Because I think a lot of us go into games like that, they're like, I'm not going to buy anything. Why would I buy anything? And that kind of connects to what you were just talking about, where once somebody has accepted a gift from us once, they might be more likely to accept it again.
Yeah. No, that checks out. That is a very specific and good explanation of where I was going. That's man, it's like you're good at deciphering my words.
You're very kind. How about Master of Ceremonies?
I already had it written down.
Okay, 3 and a white for a creature of Rhino Druid, 3/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent chooses money, friends, or secrets. For each player who chose money, you and that player each create a treasure token. For each player who chose friends, you and that player create a 1/1 green-white citizen creature token. For each player who chose secrets, you and that player draw a card. I mean, this is 2 out of 3 for our commander. This is right on flavor. And it's
I'm a big fan. One that we missed when we did our set review, and it came back to it, Marching Duodrone.
Okay.
2 mana for an artifact creature 2/2. Whenever it attacks, each creature makes a treasure token. Or each a player makes a treasure token. I just love the idea of just like tack. I'm going to do 2 damage bit by bit by bit. Who wants to take the 2 damage this time for everybody to get a treasure? Because this thing will do 10 damage before the game is over.
Marching Duodrone. There it is. Interesting.
I just like this little dude. Yeah. This little beat booping robot.
Oh yeah, I like that.
We got to figure out a way to pump it up. Oh wait, we don't have to. We have Gluntch. We're bestowing counters. Right. That's our win con. I don't care what anybody says. Okay, I do care. That's going to take a while, but still, I like him.
Absolutely.
So we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that we've got for treasures, and we're about half giving ourselves extra treasures and half giving other people treasures.
Right.
Where are you feeling for the next
section for ramping ourselves? So we're just going to choose whatever we like here.
For sure.
Here we go. Excavation Technique. 3 and a white for a sorcery with
Yeah.
When you cast the spell, you may copy it. If you do, choose an opponent to copy it. Players choose new targets for their copies. Destroy target non-land permanent. Its controller creates 2 treasure tokens. Yeah, so if you choose to copy it, then you're going to destroy 2 non-land permanents, and each of their controllers will make 2 treasure tokens, and then one of your opponents will also do the same.
Will also get to destroy something.
So you're getting a lot of value for 4 mana. Now, technically it is spot removal, and I think this kind of straddles the line between spot removal and treasure token creation, because I think as spot removal, this is probably not very good, but as spot removal with upside for our deck, definitely playable.
Who is ever casting this to remove one thing?
Never.
You know what I mean?
It's the way these are costed all but forces you to choose demonstrate, which I'm fine with.
Right. Yeah. Oh, it absolutely.
You would never run this with the intention to not demonstrate. Okay.
You know what?
Yeah.
Okay. Next one that's going to help people. Us definitely, but other people as well. Bucknard's Ever Full Purse. So this one, 2 mana for an artifact. For 1 and to tap it, you can roll a d4 and create a number of treasure tokens equal to the result. Then the player to your right gains control of Bucknard's Ever Full Purse. So it's something where you're able to give at the very least, they're going to break even. But they have a 75% chance that they're going to do better than that. And you're giving something to go around the table to just put a little bit of variance into the game as far as people's turns. Because, well, it's almost like a Zavala effect for everybody. Yeah. How much mana am I going to add?
I really like this. I like this a lot.
Yeah.
What are we up to
now? Bucknards. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Okay.
I'm okay with us doing 1 or 2 more.
Yeah, let's see what we get.
I know we want to get to 10 on average,
right,
but I feel like we can find.
That was just a rule of thumb. Yeah.
Is there any others then that are speaking to you here? Like, oh, hey, we're giving lots of tokens.
Yeah.
Why don't we have an Academy Manufacturer here?
Yeah, Academy Manufacturer for sure.
Yeah, 3 mana for a 1/3 artifact creature assembly worker. If you would create a clue, food, or treasure token, instead create 1 of each. So, if we create treasure tokens for somebody else, do we get to give them food and clues as well?
Those are the players who are creating the tokens, right? Whenever an effect says that you're having an opponent get a token,
okay,
universally, and I'm sure there might be a exception, but this is the way they do it. That player is going to create the token, and the reason for that is that when a player creates a token, they own and control it.
Okay.
So this will help us when we make treasure tokens because we'll get that extra value out of it. Mm-hmm. But it's not going to help our opponents, which is okay.
That's fine. Either way, I still like it as just an overall effect. Here's lots of tokens.
A nice mana sink to round it out here. How about Treasure Vault?
Yeah!
It's an artifact land. It has tap out of colorless, but it has the activated ability double X. So you'll choose a value for X and pay it twice. Tap and sacrifice Treasure Vault, create X treasure tokens. Now this obviously, you're having you're only getting half of the value out of what you put in, but you're getting it as treasure tokens, which our deck has synergy with. And if you need a mana sink, you need a mana sink, right? You just have to spend the mana. This is a way that you can do that. You put in 8 mana, you get 4 treasure tokens for next turn.
Yeah, totally reasonable. I like it. I think that's good.
Okay.
We've got a land in there, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then Treasure Vault makes 10.
Now, there is a 4th section of synergy, and it's not a long list.
Nope, but I saw this, and it was some of my... I love these cards whenever they make sense to go into a deck, and the answer is yes. They're both going in.
So
yes.
I'll read one, you can read the other. Starting off with the classic, the eternal Stronic Resonator, right? Now, this is a very spiky card, but for us, this is doing exactly what we want. 2 mana, it's an artifact, pay 2 and tap, copy target triggered ability you control. You may choose new targets for the copy. Mike, all that we want is to bestow more things with Gluntch. Now, every time Gluntch triggers, we can pay 2 and get another trigger out of it. And the other artifact works similarly.
So this is the triggered ability. Is each line of text on Gluntch one triggered ability?
No, the entire thing is a single triggered ability.
So you're doing the entire thing twice.
Over again.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's great.
We love that. All right, and then the other thing is, hey, would you like... I heard you like Strionic Resonator, so I got you some Strionic Resonator to go into Strionic Resonator. Yeah. Lithiform Engine. This is 4 mana for a legendary artifact. The first effect is pay 2, tap it, and do the same thing that Strionic Resonator does. Copy target activated or triggered ability.
More stuff.
Exactly. Or you can pay 3 and tap it to copy target instant or sorcery spell you control and choose new targets for the copy. Or you can pay 4 and tap it and copy target permanent spell you control. And the copy
we're going to make good use of that.
Yeah, so it's copy a spell that you do, copy an effect that you do, or copy a different type of spell that you do.
Right.
So in the worst case scenario, you have 2 different effects that say, I would like to glunch twice, please.
Excuse me, can I glunch more than once? I mean, once?
I would like seconds of glunch.
Can I get seconds?
Perfect.
Now, this bit threw me when the rule came out because, it's not how we understood things would be going, but this is relevant just to mention as a bit of a micro judge's corner, right? For that third ability, pay 4 and tap, copy target permanent spell you control, the copy becomes a token, right? This is very important. When you resolve that ability and make a copy of that spell and get a token, that is not a token that you created. The token resolves onto the battlefield as a result of that ability resolving. So effects that say create twice that many tokens, they don't work. Okay. So I think those 2 are definitely going in. Now, my goal for this section, and a good rule of thumb, is the thing that you want your deck to do, the core synergy, which we call bestowal, things that we have built our entire deck's theme around, you would want to aim for a ballpark of roughly 30 cards. And Mike, how many cards do we have, not counting lands?
We're at 34, including 3 lands. Okay. So we're at 31 non-land cards that do this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good place to take a break here, and then we'll come back and do some of these vegetables. We're going to do some spot removal. We're going to do some draw. And it's not just going to be the boring stuff either. We're going to do it Gluntch style.
Yeah. Gluntch-wise. Perfect. All right, everybody. We're going to be right back in a bit, and we're going to build the second half of this deck and eventually get to our lands and some good win cons and some cool stuff. We'll see you in just a second. Alex, we're back! And because I'm bad at planning, I didn't ask you what we were going to go with next. Do we want to go ramp removal, card advantage?
Let's go ramp.
Lanes?
And,
yeah!
There's, so many just basic ramp spells, especially in green. But I thought that we can start with some more on-theme ones, which of course means some group hug ramp. But specifically, I have a specific group hug ramp spell in mind, Mike, that really plays directly into our strengths. And that is Blink Moth Urn, one of my all-time favorites. 5 mana for an artifact. At the beginning of each player's pre-combat main phase, that's main phase 1, if Blink Moth Urn is untapped, that player adds colorless mana, 1 mana, for each artifact they control. Right? So we're doing all this treasure shenanigans.
Right.
And this is almost rewarding people for not even spending their treasure. It creates this interesting gamut. I really like this one. Normally you would put it in your artifact deck, your group hug artifact deck, which I do have one. It's Emrakul. But I really enjoy this deck, or this card here.
No, that's a very cool include. I wasn't even thinking about it. I looked at the list and I'm like, oh man, there's only 11 group rampy effects. Oh man, I wish we had more. Wait, why is Blink Moth Urn in here? I guess it works for everybody. But I forgot. Literally one of the main things that Gluntch does is make treasures. It's oh yeah. No, that's very cool. Less specific. But I like Blink Moth Urn a lot. Yeah, that's a good call. I'll tell you what. I always like Blink Moth. The only issue that I have with it, 5 mana. Man, that's so much to pump into a card to give some color. That's so much. How about we do 1? Eladamri's Vineyard.
Yeah.
So this is an enchantment that I don't see nearly enough. Green for an enchantment. At the beginning of each player's main phase, add green to that player's mana pool. Great. Just, it's Magus at the Vineyard.
Yeah,
but an enchantment.
I think that if we don't include both, then we probably go with the Magus version because this deck does care about +1/+1 counters.
Yeah. I was here to do both.
Yeah, we can do both. Yeah, of course we can do both. Magus of the Vineyard is the same thing, except it's a human wizard 1/1 for 1 green mana.
Yeah.
Exact same effect. And then we basically have another version of that. Shizuko, Caller of Autumn, for 1 green. That's 3 mana for a 2/3 legendary creature, Snake Shaman. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player adds triple green. Until end of turn, they don't lose this mana. It steps in phase's end. Really, really enjoyed this effect. And there's quite a bit of it to go around there.
Well, and the other reason that I want Eladamri's Vineyard, I want it because 1 mana, give everybody mana, right? That's cool. I definitely, if you only gave me the choice between creatures that did it and the enchantments that did it, I'd do the creatures because nothing would make me laugh harder than Magus of the Vineyard staying around long enough because people want the extra mana to then get big enough because of all the +1/+1 counters that you're giving out. And my Magus of the Vineyard, my 1/1 that has gone to the gym for the last 4 turns and is now a 8/8 or you know what I mean? Exactly. Just like so yeah, I dig that too. This is a fun stretch of cards here. What are we looking at? Any other ones from the group? That's aspect? 4.
So yep. I think we'll put a pin in that for now, and then we'll go to the more generic ramp section.
Traditional, yes.
Right, but let's try to keep it a little bit interesting here.
Okay.
Now, green is, of course, extremely effective at ramping, and I think that one that might be good for us, if we enable players to play more lands, we could do burgeoning, although that one can be a little bit tricky to get working correctly. We could do Oracle of Moldiah. Love that one.
Okay.
Oracle of Moldiah is a 3 and a green for a creature Elf Shaman 2/2. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Play with the top card of your library revealed, which is just a nice sort of open hand, I'm not holding a weapon kind of gesture. And you can play lands from the top of your library. Very powerful effect in green.
For sure.
And it is more on the expensive side, but it does really churn that value out.
Yeah. I'll tell you what. One, it's more situational for us. Well, there's 2 that I'm looking at specifically. Fertilid.
Yeah.
Because if our commander gives +1/+1 counters, if our deck gives +1/+1 counters, then yes, I would like to rampant growth for removing a +1/+1 counter from a creature. And that's what Fertilid does. 2 and a green for a 0/0 elemental that enters the battlefield with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Remove a +1/+1 counter from Fertilid and also pay 1 colorless and 1 green. Target player searches their library for a basic land and puts it onto the battlefield tap, then shuffles.
Nice.
Great! Alex.
Yeah.
This is not your fault. You've done nothing wrong.
Uh-oh.
We are missing what I think might be the most important group ramp card in this deck.
That being?
And it's because it's not on there. Because it uses very specific language that I don't think Scryfall picked up on.
That can fall through the cracks. What do we got, Mike?
How is Oath of Lieges not the first thing that we're putting into this ramp
it's
for everybody?
Sometimes that really specific older card style
language,
I just don't catch it. And that can be one of the risks of building a deck like this. But something that we were going to do after this is go ahead and check to see if we had any cards missing, and maybe that would have come up. But tell me about Oath of Lieges, Mike.
Oath of Lieges is 1 and a white for an enchantment. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player chooses target player who controls more lands than they do and is their opponent. The first player may search their library for a basic land card, put that card on the battlefield, and then shuffle.
Very nice.
So, if you do not have the most lands in the game at the beginning of your turn, you may go get a basic land from your deck and put it on the battlefield.
Basically, yeah.
It doesn't count as a land drop, it's just catching everybody up. Love Oath of Lieges.
Absolutely.
102. 20. Sorry, everybody. This is one of those ones where we're going to have a little bit more pauses because writing down cards while looking at timestamps, that's hard, believe it or not. What else do we got here? We've got Blinkmoth Urn, Eladamri's Vineyard, Magus of the Vineyard, Shizuko. We have Oracle of Moldiah, Fertilid, Oath of Lieges. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What else are we feeling?
Well, if we're looking for something to kind of reward our ability to draw and reward that with ramp, always a solid pick, Sakura Tribe Scout for 1 mana. That's 1. Creature Snake Shaman Scout. It's a 1/1 with the activated ability tap. Put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. Right. Now, that's only going to be able to really work once per turn, but that's a very cheap way to ramp when you are pretty certain you're going to have a lot of cards in your hand, which we probably will.
Right. How do we feel about, Tempt with Discovery? Does this go in this deck?
Yeah, it goes in this deck.
So Tempt with Discovery. 3 and a green for the fun, everybody knows it tempting spell, Tempting Offer. Search your library for a land card and put it on the battlefield. Each opponent may search their library for a land card and put it on the battlefield. For each opponent who searches a library this way, search your library for a land card and put it onto the battlefield. Then each player who searched a library this way shuffles it. Cool.
Nice.
Hey.
And we also have the foil to that, Pierce Whim, which does a very similar effect. They'll do a 3 and a green for a sorcery, 4 mana for each player. Choose friend or foe. Each friend searches their library for a land card, puts it onto the battlefield, tap, and shuffles. Each foe sacrifices an artifact or enchantment they control. And not to hog the mic, but I do have another one, Collective Voyage.
No, go for it.
Collective Voyage, I think, works really well in this deck because we're giving people
all the mana
that... Mike, if you had the option to turn your treasure token into a land, would you? I would. Collective Voyage.
I don't know. Is Blink Moth Urn out, Alex? Now you're giving me decisions to make.
Right, and I like it when I make players make decisions. I think that makes the game interesting. Collective Voyage is green. That's 1 mana total for a sorcery. Join Forces. Are there any more words beautiful than Join Forces? Starting with you.
Parlay, but that's it.
Yeah, that's one word. Each player may pay any amount of mana. Each player searches their library for up to X basic land cards, where X is the total amount of mana paid this way, puts them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffles, right? So everyone's kind of putting into the pot, and then we take the total amount of the pot, and everybody wins. Everyone gets that amount. So let's say we've given each player 4 treasure tokens. Everyone stacks them all. Each player searches up 16 basic lands, if they have them.
Right.
Which they might not.
I'm a fan. Hey, Alex, we should make sure that we include enough basic lands in this deck.
How could we forget Veteran Explorer?
You see, here's the thing. We're going to do more cuts in this area than any other, because you were saying, how could we forget Veteran Explorer, as I was about to say, how are we going to forget Rootweaver Druid?
Yeah. Right. We'll... I don't know.
No, you're right. They're both going in.
We'll talk about that in a minute. Veteran Explorer is green for Creature Human Soldier Scout 1/1. When Veteran Explorer dies, each player may search their library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle. This is one of the most powerful group hug effects for 1 mana that has ever been printed. This is like the carpet of flowers for group hug.
And it doesn't require even a whole lot. Like Rootweaver Druid, as much as I like it, which again, 2 a green for a 2/1 Elf Druid. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent may search their library for up to 3 basic land cards. They each put one of those cards onto the battlefield tapped under your control, and the rest on the battlefield tapped under their control. Then each player who searches a library this way shuffles. Which is great. So it's a great effect, but that requires participation.
It does.
Veteran Explorer doesn't require... Veteran Explorer does not require participation.
Veteran Explorer is like, I can't even tell you how many times you resolve this turn 1. Turn 2, you swing it into somebody.
You attack into something else. It
gets chump blocked. And all of a sudden, Mike, the game is able to start. Everyone's like, man, what am I going to play for my 1-drop, my 2-drop? Everyone's like, no. Now it's time to move up to your 4s and 5 drops. Let's play.
Yep. Hey, what were you going to do with your Llanowar elves? Nah, that's not fun, man. Let's do this instead.
Exactly. No, I love.
How about instead of that, you take this?
How many ramp cards do we have, Mike?
A good amount. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We have 12, not including Rootweaver Druid.
Okay, so we'll cut it off with Rootweaver. That'll be 13 then.
Then we got 13 with Rootweaver.
Yeah,
there
we're probably gonna have to make.
I'm doing the quick search, making sure there's nothing crazy that we're missing towards the end here. I feel like we're probably in good shape.
Okay.
Yeah, we're in good
Nice.
shape. This is fine.
Let's do our card advantage section.
Okay.
So why don't we start with just a couple of standard draws?
Sure.
And we'll move on. A lot of options for card draw in this one. And Mike, there was one specific one that you wanted to make sure that I had.
Yeah.
Tell me about that one.
Yeah. Idol of Oblivion.
Yes.
So here's the thing. There are cards that I'm like, I really like this card. I'm going to put it in a whole lot of decks that do the thing that this card says it's going to do. And then there are the cards that I'm like, oh, hey, I reread that card and I thought about it after looking at it 45 times. And I'm like, oh, this card's cooler than I thought. Idol of Oblivion, 2 mana for an artifact. You can tap it and draw a card. But you can only activate that if you've created a token this turn. Alex, we're going to create a lot of tokens in this deck.
We are if we tend
if
to
we take the
create
treasure
tokens, right?
Yes.
Because as we talked about earlier, having another player make a treasure token does not count as us creating a token.
Right, they're making the
And
treasure
likewise,
token, not us.
For that artifact we were just talking about, the one that goes with Stronic Resonator.
Lithoform engine?
Thank you. Lithoform engine, likewise, when we create a copy of a permanent spell we control, that also does not create a token. So we can run this if we expect that we'll make a lot of treasure tokens on our end. And if we will, this is great. Because then, Mike, what happens if we want to get rid of it?
Yeah, fair enough. We can go ahead and pay 8 mana and tap it and then sacrifice it. Oh no! Well, it's okay. We're gonna make a 10/10 colorless Eldrazi.
I run this card in my Afterlife deck with Sequar, the Death Keeper. And
yeah.
It's great because you get the draw, but you also have the very flavorful sack it and it makes something else, which is what the deck's all about.
I like that. What are you feeling for another card draw card here?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, while you're looking for some. Otherworld Atlas is absolutely going here. Otherworld Atlas, 4 mana for an artifact. You can tap it and put a charge counter on Otherworld Atlas. Great. You can also tap it, and each player draws a card for each charge counter on Otherworld Atlas. Well, that's explosive card draw.
Yes.
We like that because then it's almost like when you're holding like a Nev's disc, or you hold something that's like, I'm going to destroy a whole lot of stuff. When are we going to do it? Is it time to do it now? Where instead you can be like, okay, is it time for us to draw cards now, or should I add another counter? What do we want to do?
Typically, I love two,
these things,
and then I'll start activating it. I like keeping it at 2, but if you get it out really early, then you could go higher than 2.
Yeah. It kind of depends because you don't want to be dealing with diminishing returns on it,
right? Because the longer you take to get it going, let's say that you played on 4, you put a charge counter on it, and you wanted to get it to 3. Okay, well now turn 5, charge counter number 2, turn 6, charge counter number 3. So turn 7 is the first time you get a benefit out of this card. You may actually be getting fewer cards than if you had just sort of started using it earlier. So that's a decision you'll have to make.
Yeah, I think at some point it's you almost need to decide how many cards you need to see on the table. Does everybody have a hand of 7? Okay, maybe we're going to chill for a little bit. But if you've got somebody that's got 3 cards in hand, or if the collective average is 4.5, or if it's 5 cards or fewer for the table, all right, we're going to go ahead and start drawing cards. And if not, okay, make a rule for it. Do whatever you like. The point is fun. I
almost think is even a little bit better than Secret Rendezvous. Cut a deal.
Yeah.
Sorcery. Each opponent draws a card. Then you draw a card for each opponent who drew a card this way. Now, granted, this is not as political as Secret Rendezvous, but it is. It does scale with the number of players you're playing with. It has its upsides and downsides, I think.
Yeah.
As long as
put put it this way: if we're going to do one, we have to at least consider doing both, which is why we have to consider doing neither at the same time. It's just kind of what fits when we get to the end of this here. I do like the idea of scrolls down of putting Bequeathal in this deck, just because I like it. Oh, you're gonna kill Gluntch. Well, I'm gonna get some benefit out of it. It's green. It's 1 mana. Enchant creature. If enchanted creature is put into any graveyard, draw 2 cards.
Isn't that isn't that just Skullclamp?
Basically,
we have Skullclamp in here, and it costs 1 mana.
Yeah, but Skullclamp is expensive.
It's less expensive than that card you were saying that wasn't expensive. It's only $4.
Oh no, I was talking about 45 cents.
Oh, okay.
Fair enough. Yeah. I just like Bequeathal being on the thing that bestows things. It is not the smartest card to put in there. It's just the card that made me laugh the most. Skullclamp does go in here though.
It's pretty amazing.
We have enough creature. We have not talked about a creature other than Gluntch that was like more than 2 or 3 toughness for the most part.
Babies.
Yeah, because we're gonna put +1/+1 counters on them presumably. So Skullclamp is a good call.
Let's. This is an interesting one, and I think that if you want to put Idol of Oblivion in, you could definitely make an argument for this one. Benny Black, Zoologist. This is a
that was the other one I was looking at.
Mana for a legendary creature, Elf Druid. It's a 3/2 with Convoke. And it says, at the beginning of each end step, if you created a token this turn, draw a card. I think that this will trigger somewhat often.
Yeah. I mean, presumably, right?
I'm not sure exactly how many instant speed treasure effects we're going to end up with, but we'll see.
Yeah. Okay, we are sitting at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 card draw.
Okay. Let's move into the other section here and talk about some tutors. Okay.
Sure.
Now, white's tutors tend to be a lot better than green, so let's talk about some excellent white tutors. Enlightened Tutor, classic. That's a single white mana, 1 mana in total for an instant. Search your library for an artifact or enchantment card, reveal it, shuffle, and put that card on top of your library. This is just... it's one of the best tutors ever made.
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
Does good work. I'm a big fan. Let's see.
We also have Worldly Tutor, which is the green counterpart. It's a single green mana. Search your library for a creature card. Reveal that card. Shuffle and put it on top of your library. That's also 1 mana instant. And that'll find us some nice creatures.
Yeah. Worldly Tutor is good. Let's see. Part of me is leaning towards Sterling Grove because I feel like we've mentioned enough enchantments that we would like to keep
right.
around.
We'll have to check to see how many enchantments we have because if you want a card like that pays off enchantment specifically, you need a high number of them.
Yeah, and I don't know that we're that high enough.
We'll have to see.
But we're also... Yeah, because everything else that we would be looking at this point is going to be removal, lands, or win cons. So let's keep moving past that.
How about Court of Calling?
Yeah, okay.
X triple green for an instant with Convoke, which I love Convoke. Search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less, put it onto the battlefield and shuffle.
1630 for Court of Calling. Is there anything that we are looking to tutor out of our deck other than creatures? Because
this is going to come into play a little bit later in the episode, but I would like to see if we can't have a bit of a different kind of win con than maybe some people might be used to. And I actually have that in the sheet. We'll talk about that when we get to it, but I think the tutors may come into play for that win con.
Okay. Well, can we have a sneak peek as far as that we need tutors that are going to search for this kind of card?
Well, that's the thing is that we don't know yet, but we're going to find out.
Oh, fair point. Yeah. You know what? I take it back. Good call. How do we feel about Defense of the Heart?
Defense of the Heart.
enchantment, 3 and a green during your upkeep if one of your opponents controls 3 creatures or more.
Oh, yeah.
Sacrifice Defense of the Heart. Search your library for up to 2 creature cards. Put those creatures into play.
Yes.
Shuffle your library after.
Yeah, that is an absolutely disgusting card. I love it.
It is a
It is
disgusting
so
card. And at the same time, with the amount of stuff that we've put out there, the amount of creatures that we put out there, that their entire point is benefiting everybody else. It's probably going to find something terrifying, but at the same time, it could find just more good stuff. Who knows?
Yeah, for sure.
We are at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay.
Give me
Why
one
don't
more.
we do Eldamri's Call? Green and white
Okay.
for an instant.
Yep.
Search your library for a creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle.
Love it.
Okay.
The standard.
We'll have to see. And again, I don't mean to be all coy about it, but I think that having some of these tutors is going to help us later on.
Perfect. I'm building with this with you. I'm excited to see where you're going.
Okay. Let's
All
talk
right.
about removal, Mike.
Yeah.
Let's start with some of that spot removal, and we know white has that good spot removal. Green has some too, and we don't have to be too fancy with this. We have a lot of great options right here. We got Swords and Path. We don't even have to read those out. Those are both 1 mana exile effects. We have Beast Within and Generous Gift, both mirrors of each other. Both of those effects are destroying any permanent and giving its controller a 3/3. Absolutely, I think those 4 can go in, no problemo.
Yep.
We also have something that's a little more finality to it. We have Cross and Grip, great effect, 2 and a green for an instant with Split Second, destroy artifact or enchantment. Split Second again is while this spell is on the stack, no other spell or ability can be put on the stack unless it's a mana ability, but those don't even use the stack. So there you go. This can stop a lot of win cons in their tracks. They just can't. They can't respond to it, right? A lot of win cons, not all of them, but a lot of them involve. It's like, well, I knew you were going to do that, so I'll counter it, or I'll just get all my value out of it at instant speed and then let you remove it, but you'll already have lost the game. This stops those things from happening.
I have one more that I'd like to add on to here. As far as single target removal, that isn't actually single target removal. It's helpful target remover. Druid of Purification.
Okay.
So, I don't know if I've got it here, but if I don't, I'm going to add it really quick. So, Druid of Purification. Sorry, everybody. Oop. Listen to my clicky clacks.
I'm so excited for this card.
Druid of Purification. Oh, you know this card. 3 and a green for a 2/3 human druid. When Druid of Purification enters the battlefield, starting with you, each player may choose an artifact or enchantment you don't control. Destroy each permanent chosen this way.
I love that card.
It's more of the giving out a little bit of help. You're going to get rid of at least the 2 most obnoxious things at the table. You're always going to do that. You just have to be smart about it.
Absolutely. Okay, Mike, we took some spot removal. Let's talk about mass removal, wrath effects.
Okay.
And goodness gracious, we're going to have a pick of the litter here because we're in white.
Yo.
And white has some excellent options for removal.
All the things.
I think that it would behoove us to have some modularity. So naturally, an effect like Austere Command, which I think is one of the best wrath effects in the game. 4 white, 6 mana for a sorcery. Choose 2. Destroy all artifacts, or destroy all enchantments, or destroy all creatures with mana value 3 or less, or all creatures with mana value 4 or greater. Right? We can fine-tune our board white to hit everything that we want to hit and not hit the stuff that we don't want to hit. Perfect effect there.
No, absolutely. Give me another one here.
Absolutely. Here's one that I think is just swell. Winds of Abandon. 1 and a white for a sorcery. Exile target creature you don't control. For each creature exiled this way, its controller searches their library for a basic land card. Those players put those cards onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle, and of course it has Overload for 4 white, and if you overload it, it'll be exile each creature you don't control. And each of those creatures' controllers will get a land. Great effect there. We
Very
love it.
cool. You know what? I very rarely get excited to include this, but very rarely do we have a creature that we know has 0 power in it. Fell the Mighty.
Nice.
4 and a white. Destroy a sorcery. Destroy all creatures with power greater than target creature's power. Well, Gluntch is 0.
Yeah.
Are there a lot of creatures that have a -1 power that we can deal with, or do we just?
I think there's 2 in the entire game.
Yeah. So there you go. We got Gluntch. We're good set. Let's go.
I'm a big fan of this one, and this will go into our land section, but onto Inversion, right? 6 white, 8 mana for sorcery, destroy all non-land permanents. It's a modal double-face card, so you can cast it for that face, or you can play it as a land. Onto Sky Ruins enters the battlefield tapped, and you tap to add a white. Now, granted, 8 mana for sorcery, destroy all non-land permanents is overcosted, but that's okay, because if we're not ready to cast it that way, now it's a land. Easy peasy. And I count these as lands in my decks. I know not everybody does. I do.
Yeah, because they can be, and that's what matters.
Hey, look, there's Druid of Purification. Classic.
Yeah, there. Hey, look, there they are. Hi, bud. Okay, let's find one more here, because we're looking at 3 wipes that aren't lands, then the 1 wipe that is a land. 1 more, maybe 2 more, depending on how much we think we're going to have to destroy the board.
This one may count as spot removal. I guess that'll be up to us. Council's Judgment. Love this card.
Yeah.
1 white, 3 mana for a sorcery, Will of the Council. Starting with you, each player votes for a non-land permanent you don't control. Exile each permanent with the most votes or tied for the most votes. This is really not a wrath effect, but it does hit multiple things, possibly.
Yeah.
Really depends.
Like it should always hit 2. All of those Will of the Council effects should always hit 2 things.
This one is...
You can't convince me otherwise.
We've never gotten to include this in a deck. I haven't slotted it into a deck, but we talked about it during our set review of Crimson Vow, Mike. By invitation only, 3 white. Sorcery, choose a number between 0 and 13. Each player sacrifices that many creatures. Nice.
I like it.
That's enough for removal. You got one more?
I got one. I got one more to
Let's
ask, and only because of the silliness of it. Do we want to put Coercive Portal in here, or do we want to leave it be?
Interesting. I think we can put it in.
If it's first on the chopping block, it's first on the chopping block. But Coercive Portal, 4 mana for an artifact, Will of the Council at the beginning of your upkeep, starting with you. Each player votes for Carnage or Homage. If Carnage gets more votes, sacrifice Coercive Portal and destroy all non-land permanents. If Homage gets more votes, or the vote is tied, draw a card.
Yeah. Great effect.
You gotta have a pretty vast majority, because I always like Coercive Portal at the very worst case scenario at the end of the turn, or at the end of the game. It's you and one other person. Coercive Portal says, next turn I'm going to blow everything up, or I'm going to draw a card until I'm in a bad situation. But I like giving people the option. Nev's disc for the table to be political about.
There's also this one which is part of that. What's it called? Silver Quill set in Strixhaven. Just Devastating Mastery, which is a 2 and quad white. That's 6 mana for a sorcery, but you can pay 2 white 4 mana rather than pay the spell's mana cost. And if you paid 4 mana to cast this spell, an opponent chooses up to 2 non-land permanents they control and returns them to their owner's hand. Destroy all non-land permanents. So you can get a very cheap board wipe here, and you strike a little bit of a deal. Like it. I like it.
And that's Devastating Mastery. Yep, I found it. Finally. Scrolling through 200 cards. Hold on. Want to make sure. Did I hear that right? I did. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that aren't lands. So we're probably going to make a cut.
We're probably going to make some
but
cuts.
We'll get there. Okay. Alex, we're at the point. We got to eat our vegetables.
Okay, Mike. Let's eat our vegetables. Let's talk about some lands. Okay.
Okay.
Now, I've selected some on-theme land. Now, I haven't selected lands. I've pulled up a list of possible lands that we could select from that are on theme for our deck. And these will mostly be utility lands. And because we're in 2 colors, we can probably afford to run up to 10 utility lands if we wanted to.
Okay. Well, we've got a few.
So let's talk about War Room, right? I really like this one.
Oh, yeah.
War Room is a land, tap, add a colorless, pay 3 and tap, and pay life equal to the number of colors in your commander's color identity, which for us is green mana, green-white, which is 2, pay 2 life, and you'll draw a card, right? Paying 3 mana, 2 life, tap a land, draw a card. Now, for a spell, that's very expensive. For a land, that is dirt cheap. Right? Most of the time, you're paying 5 mana to draw off of a land. Okay. This one, quite the classic, Orin Reef the Vastwood. It's a land. Should be a legendary land. It's not. Look at all my Orin Reefs the Vastwoods. Orin Reef the Vastwood enters the battlefield tapped. It has tap at a green, and it has tap put a +1/+1 counter on each green creature that entered the battlefield this turn.
This turn, yeah.
Yeah. You can get some value out of that.
For sure. And along those lines, I mean, Gavany Township, more expensive, definitely, but the ability to do that on each creature you control.
Yeah, let's do Gavany Township.
At any time. Yeah, as opposed to just that specific turn. We like that.
Well, let's read that for our listeners, shall we?
So, we have land, tap. Great. Add a colorless. We also have 2 green-white, tap. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. We like that even more. So there we go. Okay, we got War Room, Orin Reef, Gavany Township. We have the Gyreek Sanctum. We have Mikokoro. We have Treasure Vault. What else do we want to
this one here? Turn Timber Symbiosis. This is 4 and triple green.
Oh, yeah,
7 mana for a modal double face spell. It's a sorcery for 7. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may put a creature card from among them onto the battlefield. If that card is mana value 3 or less, it enters with 3 additional +1/+1 counters on it. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. And on the other face, it has Turn Timber Serpentine Wood. It's a land. As the land enters the battlefield, you may pay 3 life. If you don't, it enters tapped, and it has tap at green. A Jolt land. These are very powerful lands, and again, I do consider these to be lands.
Yeah, that's totally reasonable to do that. I am sad that Animal Sanctuary doesn't include jellyfish.
Well, jellyfish are not a very common animal in this game.
I know, but it doesn't mean that I can't be sad about it.
Bird, cat, dog, goat, ox, or snake. Not for us.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Hold on.
Not for us.
How many oxen? How many oxen? How many oxen are you dealing with in the game? Fair enough. Do we want to include any other ones here?
Yeah, I think we have some more that we could talk about here.
Mm-hmm. I do want to put a little bit of a call out there for Bredegard Strongholds.
Okay.
Just because sometimes you just need to hurt something. Bredegard Stronghold enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it to add a green, or you can pay green, white, tap it, and sacrifice it to put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures you control. They gain vigilance and lifelink until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery.
Nice.
The idea that you're putting enough value into your own creatures to then use it to gain yourself some life, make sure that they're still a decent blocker. I like that. It's only sorcery speed, so it has to be on an attack that you're making, but the game's got to end at some point, so why not?
Mike, here's one that's, it's a little bit mellow, a little under the radar, but I think it's still worth running. Vastwood Fortification, another modal double-face land. You know that I enjoy these effects when they have lands on them because I get to put them in my land slots. It's 1 mana, a single green for an instant, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. And it also has its back face, Vastwood Thicket, which is a land at ETB's tapped, and it adds a green when you tap it.
It's underrated how often a combat trick can really, really mess with somebody's
And
mind.
for us, this is upside for our commander synergy. It doesn't
Yep.
play it any way you want to play it.
More plus one counters. Just do the thing. Have a good time. Huzzah! I do want to. I do want to consider Tyrite Sanctum just because the idea of turning Flump into an indestructible 1/6 jellyfish god makes me happy. But I don't know if I'm ever going to go that far with it.
That's a large mana investment for such a limited
Yeah.
benefit.
For a creature that people are unlikely to be tempted to destroy anyway. It's more for the it's more of a do it for the vine kind of thing than it is an actual like effect that I want to do.
Yeah. I think that... Yeah.
I'm pretty comfortable with what we've got.
I like this one too. And I don't know if this will count as a land, because this is a transforming card, so you do have to fulfill a requirement. But Treasure Map.
Sure.
Treasure
okay,
Map
yeah.
is too generic. It's for an artifact, and it has the activated ability, pay 1 tap, and you'll scry 1, put a landmark counter on Treasure Map. Then, if there are 3 or more landmark counters on it, remove those counters, transform Treasure Map, and then make 3 treasure tokens. And on the back face, it's Treasure Cove. It's a land. It has tap, add a colorless, and it has tap, sacrifice a treasure to draw a card. So not only on the front face are we getting these treasure tokens when we transform, but now we also have the ability to turn our treasures, which we are already making, directly into cards.
I dig it.
Now, I wouldn't call this a land. I would probably call this card advantage. Or
is it
ramp,
card advantage? Yeah,
or maybe bestow. I don't know. We'll...
I at this point I would just call this potpourri. Like it's in
Sure.
one it's in its own unique category. Is this something? Okay, here's your judge's corner for the episode. Strionic Resonator, would that work with Treasure Map at all? Because when you transform it, you're not able to do that twice.
No, because this is an activated ability, and Strionic Resonator is for a triggered ability only, as I recall, right?
Okay. And then it's not something that you're casting, you're transforming it, so you wouldn't be able to do anything with Lithoform Engine. Alright. I just wanted more treasure coves, to be honest with you. There's no good reason for it. I just wanted it.
And we could run our land copy effects. You could run your Thespian Stage, you could run your Vesuva, but for only a single land, you'd either want your deck to be built around land copy effects, or you would want to have a ton of lands that care about being copied. And we don't really have that many, so probably not.
No, we don't. We don't. There are like 2 effects maybe in the entire deck that we would want to do that with, so I'm more than happy with being not... I'm okay with the rules being the rules, I guess.
So how many lands did we just select, not counting
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have 6 lands that we've selected now, and we had the 2 lands before with Mikokoro and 3 lands before with Gaia Reach Sanitarium.
Yeah, I mean those will go in the last
Mikokoro and Treasure Vault. Right. So we're dealing with 9 of those.
I think that's good. I think that having about 9 utility lands, although some of those do tap for colored mana, so those are barely utility lands.
Right.
Let's talk about some nice lands that we may just want to be thrown in here, but I think that something that's important for people to note is that there's just a lot of lands that you can just throw in, and for a deck like this that only has 2 colors, you can afford to put in a high number of basic lands.
Yeah, and in fact, there's plenty of spells that we're casting that are caring about basic lands.
Yes.
So I would say that you're probably putting whatever number that you would typically look for in a 2-color deck, and especially with it being green, go ahead and lean further in that direction.
Absolutely. So let's talk about some maybe some Selesnya lands that get green and white that we might want to put in here. For example, there's our classic Brushland, which is a pain land. It enters untapped, tap to add a colorless, and you can tap to add green or white. You take 1 damage. These are nice, although they do tend to get pretty expensive, although it looks like they got reprinted and now they're very cheap. cheap paint
Yep.
lands, I would go ahead and pull the trigger on those because paint lands are just good, in my opinion.
No, I dig that.
So there's Brushland. We also have...
Yeah, we're not telling people go get savannas out here.
Yeah, I mean, we can throw Savannah in there, but I think that might be a little unreasonable for most people.
A little bit.
I do have a Savannah, but it's not real. It's a proxy.
There you go. Put it this way: we can go through all of the different, Arctic tree line. We can go through the guild gates and stuff like that.
But we don't have to.
What I would ask you is, in this deck where we've got, I want to say we've got at least 6 effects that care about basic lands specifically to go get them from your deck, and a couple of them that are go get them repeatedly or go get a lot of them at once.
I would say...
If we've got 9 utility lands, how many basics are you
I would say
working on?
10 of each basic. So 20 basics, 10 forests, 10 plains. And then as the sort of time goes on and as you tweak your deck, you can make the call list switching out those basics for non-basic lands at your leisure.
Right.
But I think for now, just for this deck, we can put in 10 forests and 10 plains. And with those 9 utility lands, that's 29. So from there, we'll take maybe however many that is, 7, 8, 9 non-basic lands that tap for green or white. And we can just start kind of rattling those off if you like.
Guild gates,
Yeah,
you
got
can
your
go
tap lands,
with
your paint lands, your fast lands, your slow lands, your scatter grove, your woodland bastions, filter lands. We can sort of flesh it out later. You can do that.
You can find the shock lands. You can find the You got there. There's a plan. Here's the thing: if you got them, they go in.
Exactly.
If you don't got them, okay. I think you work off of that pretty easy. Okay, Alex. Yeah. We're ramping. We're drawing. We're removing. We're bestowing. Holy cow, are we bestowing?
Okay.
How we win?
Well, the first question I'm going to ask you, Mike, is how many cards do we have in our deck right now?
Let's say that we have...
The total number of lands we'll have is between 36 and 38.
Okay. Let's say we have exactly the number that you need me to have for us to continue here I'm just brought everything
right, because
down.
This
1, 2, 3,
what I want to do here, and this is going to be really interesting because this really is going to be extemporaneous, is I want to use the website that I help run, commanderspellbook.com, to help us see if we can put some combo win cons into our deck, or maybe we already have one. Because I know, firsthand experience, right? Group hug decks are really fun, but when it comes time to figure out how you're going to win, sometimes that can be a little bit painful. And a lot of the time we just go for the alternate win con, or maybe even we don't put one in there, which is what all those content creators that hate group hug are like, hey, you're not allowed to do that, which granted, we want win cons. So here's what I'm thinking. We're going to get this deck as compiled as we can. Mike's working on that right now. Then we're going to go over to commanderspellbook.com, and right on the homepage, we're going to click the Find My Combos button and put the deck list in there. And we're going to let the website crunch through it and see if it can find any combos. And if it doesn't, maybe it'll find some potential combos, which are combos that are almost in the deck. We just have to add one more card. Okay, Mike. Now, for our win con, I wanted to do something a little bit different, right?
All right.
I have a site, commanderspellbook.com, and we have this awesome feature we just came out with it a couple of months ago called Find My Combos. And basically, you put in your deck list. It's going to search through your deck list, search through our full combo database of over 17,000 combos. It'll find what's in the deck, and it'll tell you what's going on in there, what kind of combos you have. And not only that, but it'll also show you if you have any near misses, right? Some potential combos that maybe you're missing one combo piece, and if you add one card, boom, now you have a combo. And
uncover combos in your deck and discover potential combos. It's like it's right there on the homepage.
Exactly. So we went to commanderspellbook.com. We went to the Find My Combos page right there under the search bar, and I put in our deck list that we've been making.
Okay.
Now, there are no combos in it yet, but
of course not.
Right, because we're just like that.
Yeah. We're just building stuff up as far as what can we do?
We didn't make any by accident,
things,
but
lots
we
of things.
Could make some on purpose, right? It found 3 potential combos. Okay.
Okay.
It found a combo with Lithoform Engine and the card we don't have, Sands of Time. Okay. Sands of Time is a card that says it's an artifact for 4 mana. Each player skips their untap phase. And at the beginning of each player's turn, untap each tapped artifact, creature, and land they control, and tap each untapped artifact, creature, and land they control. Okay, so how does this work? Well, right here on the website, if we have all the permanents Lithoform Ended and Sands of Time on the field, and we have at least the ability to generate 3 mana, which, not a problem there.
It should be fine.
So we'll start at the beginning of any untap step. Sands of Time will trigger. In response to the trigger, we're going to tap all our lands, artifacts, and creatures, anything that makes mana. And then we'll tap Lithoform Engine, copying Sands of Time on the trigger. Then we'll let the trigger resolve, untapping the mana, producing permanents, and Lithoform Engine, and we'll keep doing that for infinite mana. Now, Sands of Time maybe isn't the best fit for this deck, so let's look at some of our other options.
It's a little mean. I'm not going to lie.
It's going to basically lock people out forever. And see what it actually does. It says you'll get infinite mana, get infinite untapping creatures, infinite artifact untaps, and infinite land untaps. So you basically...
And everybody else sad.
Everybody else sad, exactly.
But here, I will say this. For a quick, ooh, can I see that segment? It's in 636 decks.
Yeah, Sands of Time is one of those cards that's... It's a really dangerous effect in a very specific way, because it says each player skips their untap phase. Mike, if a player happens to have permanents, or just their entire board perhaps, to be phased out, and you put in Sands of Time, it will not phase back in. So if somebody does something like Teferi's Protection, all of their stuff is gone. Well, Sands of Time comes down. When their turn comes back around, they'll lose their protection from everything.
They skip it.
They'll lose their life total, can't change, but their stuff doesn't come back. Now they're the world's biggest sitting duck. So that really hoses that specific strategy. Kind of a weird one there. We do have 2 other potential combos we could add in. Okay. And this one, I think this one might actually be worth running, potentially. We'll see. So this one tells us to add Clock of Omens, and it's going to combo with Temple Bell and Smothering Tithe.
Yeah!
So we're going to need Temple Bell, Clock of Omens. Let's read Clock of Omens really fast. I really like this card for an artifact deck. Very nice. It's 4 mana for an artifact. Tap 2 untapped artifacts you control. Untap target artifact. That's an activated ability. Just tap 2 artifacts down. That can include Clock of Omens, and you'll get an untapped artifact. Yep. It seems like it's kind of but it's really more like, This card is great. I like it. So let's see how this works. You need to have Temple Bell, Clock of Omens, Mother and Tithe all on the field. And you need to have the largest library size out of all of your opponents. Which, granted, that might not always be true, but hey, worst case scenario, we cause ourselves to lose. Who knows? And at least 2 of your opponents can't pay for Smothering Tide's trigger. So that's actually going to happen somewhat often. People like to tap out for their turn.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're going to activate Temple Bell. We ring it. Each player draws a card. Smothering Tithe triggers, right, because of Temple Bell. Smothering Tide's triggers resolve. You're going to make at least 2 treasure. And then you're going to use Clock of Omens to tap down those treasures and untap Temple Bell. And you're going to get infinite card draw. Infinite card draw triggers and an arbitrary number of treasure tokens. So I think that actually has potential to be included.
That one is silly enough that I am all in on it. That's totally fine.
We can include a Clock of Omens. Now we have a 3-piece combo that gives us a lot of infinite stuff. And then, Mike, we're pulling double duty here, because if we include Clock of Omens, we get another combo with it, with Otherworld Atlas and Smothering Tithe, which is almost the same thing. It's basically the exact same thing. So, exact same idea, except instead of using Temple Bell, we use Otherworld Atlas with at least 1 charge counter on it. So that will take 1 extra turn to set up. But it's the exact same combo.
It's the same concept.
Only had to add in 1 card. So with adding 1 card, Mike, we can create 2 win cons that are technically different combos. Really, it's the same combo with one of the cards swapped out. But I think that that's a viable option. And in addition to that, if you like, maybe we can look at alternate win cons. But I just wanted to see and show our listeners here that if you're struggling to find win cons for your deck, just toss it onto the site on commanderspellbook.com, and maybe you'll find a win con that you didn't even know you had.
All right, Alex. So we've got our combos with the Clock of Omens.
Yes.
It's just literally adding one card. And
isn't that great? We added one card, and now we have a win con.
Yes. And we got our Temple Bell. We got our
Smothering Tithe.
Our Otherworld Atlas, Smothering Tithe. Either one of those two card draw engines. Just draw it all. And that'll be fun.
That's not really enough to secure our win. Because we'll find it sometimes, but not all the time. So let's talk about some nice effects that maybe are a mana sink that we can do late game.
Okay.
Let's talk about maybe Finale of Glory and Finale of Devastation.
Okay. Yeah, because what is a finale if not the end game?
Exactly. So let's... I didn't have them pulled up. I just typed them down.
No, you're okay. You're okay. We've been going for well over 2.5 hours at this point. Like, it's okay.
Finale of Devastation is X green for a sorcery, search your library and or graveyard for a creature card with mana value X or less. Put it onto the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle. If X is 10 or more, creatures you control get +X and gain haste until end of turn. Now, this is a very expensive card. This is pushing $50.
Sorry, I was thinking expensive as mana cost, but yes, also in the actual cost.
How about a card that is a lot like that card, except so much cheaper? It's actually under $1.
Yeah.
Finale of Glory is X white for a sorcery. Create X 2/2 white soldier creature tokens with vigilance. If X is 10 or more, then you additionally create X 4/4 white angel tokens with flying and vigilance. So if we're doing a big mana sink in here, we're going to get a lot of tokens. Now, this is not super on theme for our deck, but Mike, this is just sometimes how it goes, right? It's okay to have win cons.
I've got Alex. I've got it. We're here for lunch. We're here for Gluntch.
And sometimes
it's the Gluntch rush. Everybody is here. Everybody is here. Oh gosh, the Gluntch rush is coming.
Let's throw in a few of those alternate win cons, Mike. What are some good alternate win cons in green and white?
Well, I mean, you've got Helix Pinnacle.
Helix Pinnacle.
We are gonna make enough mana, to where we might not go infinite to make enough mana to go with Helix Pinnacle. Although we could, but just the very idea of, hey, let's go ahead and at the end of my turn, I don't have anything else I want to do. I'm gonna put 23 mana into Helix Pinnacle. Yeah. Green for an enchantment with Shroud. X, put X tower counters on Helix Pinnacle. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 100 or more tower counters on Helix Pinnacle, you win the game. Okay.
This is a very silly alternate win con. I think it's just about my favorite one. It's hard to remove.
It just works. Yeah.
And you just churn that value, right? You put this down.
You have to board wipe it.
Yeah, basically you have to board wipe it.
It's not a... Yeah. And with the Shroud effect, as opposed to Hexproof, it's not even like it's up for debate for me to get rid of it kind of thing. It's going to stick around.
Well, it has Shroud so that you can't double the counters on target permanent.
Well, that as well. Like, there's a good reason that it has Shroud. But
people see 100, they're like, wow, 100? Listen, if you can't make 100 mana over the course of this game, you didn't Gluntch hard enough.
Yeah, you need to Gluntch harder. And then, for white, as far as the standard for alternate win cons, Approach of the Second Sun. Again, 6 and a white for a sorcery. Oh, it's so expensive to cast. Not in this deck, it isn't. If Approach of the Second Sun was cast from your hand, and you've cast another spell named Approach of the Second Sun this game, you win the game. Otherwise, put Approach of the Second Sun into its owner's library, 7 from the top, and you gain 7 life.
Yep.
I can't copy this spell and then cast the copy first, can I?
So, when we look at Approach of the Second Sun, we have to be really careful with the language. Approach of the Second Sun. It says, if this spell
if it was cast from your hand. Yeah.
and you've cast another spell. So copies are not really going to help unless you're casting a copy. But a minor point here that we've talked about before, if the initial Approach of the Second Sun that you cast, not the one that wins you the game, but the first one, if that gets countered, that's okay because you still cast it, which means that if you cast it again, maybe get it out of your graveyard, then bing, bang, boom. That's it. That's the win.
Good.
So you want to be, if you're trying to counter an Approach of the Second Sun, wait for the second time that they cast it.
Yeah, wait for the second
sun. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, and then you've got your overrun effects, like, you already brought up Finale of Devastation, but I mean, Triumph of the Hordes. You don't have to get that hard, or you don't have to hit that hard with Triumph of the Hordes, and you adding a couple of +1 counters here and there to what you're doing with your utility creatures out on the board.
You've only got a puncher for 10 damage per player.
Yeah. And Trample, great. I mean, you've got the idea of Gluntch flying over and going, jellyfish poison, blah. Something does make me laugh a little bit.
This interesting one that I haven't seen before, but it's perfectly on brand. And that's Strength of the Tajuru?
Yeah, I've used this in my Atali deck before. But yeah, so Strength of the Tajuru, X green for an instant, but it has multi-kicker 1. So you may pay an additional 1 colorless any number of times as you cast a spell. Choose target creature, then choose another creature for each time the spell was kicked. Put X +1/+1 counters on each of them. So this is cool. Yes, it's a win con for us because, hey, I'm going to pump my board on somebody else's end step. But you can also help somebody else get through if they need to.
That's what I like about these X spells is, they're win cons, but you can also cast them earlier in the game.
Yeah. No, we dig that. So some interesting win cons in here. And again, there's options. There's the standard group hug options as far as the alternate win cons. There's the pump effect win cons. There's some fun stuff in there. And then here's the other thing. This is just the deck that you and I made on the fly. We're going to play this, and we're going to switch up, like, I don't know, what do you think, 15 to 20 cards at some point?
We're going to have some cuts because we picked a few extra cards. But what we're going to do is we'll make some cuts off mic. We're going to get it down to 100 cards, and we're going to put that list up. We're going to put this spreadsheet up so you can, hopefully you've been following along. If not, maybe you can make your own version, or maybe if you ever wanted to make a deck and maybe you're not trying to use EDH Rec. I know EDH Rec's a great tool, but you don't always want to use it if maybe you're trying to make your own deck and not make the deck everybody else made. And with these Scryfall search terms, you can sort of build your deck out by your own definition, and that's what we did today. And Mike, I think this deck came out pretty well. We'll have to see how it plays.
Yeah, at the very least, it's definitely going to be fun to pilot. And then whatever we need to do after you've piloted it a little bit, okay, we'll figure it out. But I like it.
The deck building doesn't stop once you've made the deck, right? You continue to cut and refine and hone it and see, like, wow, this card is dead in my hand all the time. Let's change this one out. Or this isn't doing what I thought it should be doing.
Right. When your car is built and then it's on the lot and then you buy it from the lot, you still have to put gas in it. You still have to fill up the tires. You still have to get
tune the balance
changes.
of lens. Maybe, for example, we have saturation of green over white. Maybe it's like 60-40. So we might want to tilt our lands balance a little bit more into green. Right. That kind of thing.
And as we look into it, it's like, okay, well, we've got a bunch of ramp effects. Well, we've also got a couple of different things that also do ramp effects from other If we find out that we're doing a whole lot of different things,
then we can cut some selfish ramp and put, the group ramp covers us. It's certain things you only find out once you play the deck.
And we're going to find that out in the future, and we hope that you find out in the future and you can let us know. And Alex, if they wanted to let you know what they like, what they didn't like, what their suggestions are, etc., how would they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Lappermedic, LAPPERMEDIC. Feel free to talk to me about Magic. You have any judge questions, I'm happy to answer them. Or just talk about anything else. And then I also have a website, commanderspellbook.com, that's helped us figure out one of the win cons for this deck, and maybe it can help you figure out your win cons with our Find My Combos feature. We talked about it earlier in the episode, but I think it's a great website. Just check it out. And we also have a Discord with a great community full of people who love talking about the social contract, and not just our podcast, right? It's not just a bunch of sycophants and they're saying, wow, Mike, you're so great. Alex, you're so great. No, they're in there. They're brewing Brewpub decks every day. They're showing us social contract cards they found all the time. This is a real community, and we want you to come in and be a part of it.
Be our friend, dang it.
Yeah. No, they're great guys. And
think about all the Discord. Think about all the time that you could have been our friend before.
Oh my God!
Look
all
at
these
all of that
years
wasted
I
time.
haven't been Mike's friend.
All these wasted years. Just be our friend. Just figure it out.
No, if this is your kind of deal, and you're listening to our podcast and you're like, God, I wish that I could talk about stacks and group hug and all this stuff with other people, but nobody wants to talk about it. That's what we talk about all the time.
Or just the other stuff that it doesn't have to be our stuff. Your stuff is still part of the social contract. What's going on? Let's just make fun at the table. We'll figure it out. That's the whole point. It's a collective experience. Alex, I hope you've enjoyed this collective experience. I now have a car alarm that's going off behind me, and if that's not the best way for us to finish the episode,
all right, I don't know. We're going to go have some lunch here.
There you go. We'll talk to y'all soon.